Imagine this. You're standing on the deck of a massive cruise ship. The sun is sinking into the horizon, painting the sky in strokes of fire and gold. The sea is calm. The music from the poolside parties drifts across the night air, and thousands of passengers relax in their floating paradise. This is supposed to be a dream vacation, a safe escape from the chaos of the world. But what if this perfect evening was the beginning of a nightmare unlike anything humanity has ever faced? What if the first zombie outbreak didn't start in a city or a lab, but right here, in the middle of the ocean? One passenger coughs in the dining hall. Nobody pays attention. It's just a cold, maybe seasickness, nothing unusual on a long trip at sea. But within hours, their temperature spikes, their eyes glaze over, and they collapse. The medical staff rushes in, trying to save them, but the disease is already moving faster than anyone can react. By the time the night ends, the patient is no longer human. And when they rise, when they bite the first victim, panic spreads across the ship like fire through dry grass. Think about it. A city at least has hospitals, police, and escape routes. On land, there are roads, safe zones, maybe even armies ready to fight. But here, on a ship surrounded by thousands of miles of open water, there is nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, and no one to call for help. The ocean, so calm and beautiful a moment ago, becomes a prison made of endless waves. What would you do if you realized the ship you trusted as your sanctuary had suddenly become your coffin? As the outbreak begins, crew members scramble to contain the infection. They lock sick passengers inside cabins. They announce safety measures over the intercom, asking everyone to remain calm. But calm doesn't last long. Rumors spread. Fear takes over. And in the narrow corridors, where every hallway looks the same, the infected begin to hunt. Imagine running through the twisting decks of a ship, every corner echoing with footsteps and screams, knowing that safety is only an illusion. How do you survive when every stairwell, every locked door, every crowded dining hall turns against you? The ocean isolates the ship, but it also magnifies the terror. Every scream, every thud against a door echoes louder. Every shadow feels closer. And as the infection spreads, the ship transforms. The grand ballroom, once full of laughter, becomes a battlefield. The swimming pool fills not with vacationers, but with blood. The children's play areas, the casino, the luxurious cabins, all of it turns into a labyrinth of fear. The infected do not stop, and the passengers are trapped. Would you try to fight back? Or would you search for a way to escape into the ocean itself, knowing that even if you survived the plunge, the sea is merciless? The truth is, in this scenario, survival becomes almost impossible. The lifeboats are limited. Who gets to board them? Who decides? Imagine the chaos when hundreds of terrified people rush the decks at once, desperate to escape, only to realize that lowering a lifeboat into a dark, storm-tossed ocean may be just as deadly as staying on the ship. But the greatest danger isn't just the infected or the sea. It's the people themselves. Fear transforms passengers into enemies. Friends betray each other for a seat on a lifeboat. Families fight strangers to protect their loved ones. The thin layer of civilization peels away, revealing something primal. In many ways, humans are not so different from the monsters they are running from. What would you do when survival meant choosing between your own life and the lives of others? Let's say you survive the first wave of chaos. You find a corner of the ship, maybe barricade yourself in a cabin with a few others. But the infection grows, always spreading. One by one, safe zones collapse. The infected never tire, never sleep, never stop. And unlike a city, there are no reinforcements coming. The Coast Guard can't reach you in time. Radio calls go unanswered. Satellites might pick up your distress signal, but by the time help arrives, there may be no one left to save. And yet, the most chilling thought is not the immediate terror, but the long-term question: what happens when the ship finally docks? If even one infected passenger makes it to shore, the outbreak doesn't stay at sea. It spreads to port cities, to airports, to entire nations. The ocean may have slowed the infection, but once the ship reaches land, humanity faces the full nightmare. The question is not just how you survive on the ship, but whether the world survives after it. Now picture this twist. What if the infection didn't begin with a bite at all? What if it was something in the food or in the water supply on board? What if every passenger already carried the seed of the infection, waiting to awaken? In that case, no one is safe, no one can escape, and the outbreak doesn't need a first victim. The entire ship is already doomed from the start. The luxury cruise becomes a floating time bomb, drifting silently across the sea. The ocean setting changes everything. On land, survivors dream of reaching the coast. At sea, the coast becomes the threat. Survivors might hesitate to dock, knowing that by reaching land, they unleash the apocalypse upon millions. Would you choose to stay at sea, drifting forever, or would you risk unleashing the infection on the rest of the world? This is not just a fight for survival. It becomes a moral question, a choice between saving yourself or saving humanity. And maybe, just maybe, the ocean itself offers one final horror. Imagine infected bodies thrown overboard, sinking into the depths, only to drift with the currents. Sharks, fish, even seabirds feeding on the corpses could spread the contamination further. Islands, coasts, entire ecosystems threatened. The outbreak wouldn't just end humanity, it could transform the entire natural world. A zombie ocean filled with infected creatures of the deep, rising from below as humans fight above. When you really think about it, a zombie outbreak in the middle of the ocean is not just a nightmare for the passengers, it's a nightmare for the entire planet. A single ship, isolated and forgotten, could become the trigger for the end of civilization as we know it. So ask yourself, if you were on that ship, trapped between the infected inside and the endless ocean outside, what would you do? Would you fight until the end? Would you leap into the sea and take your chances with the waves? Or would you make the ultimate sacrifice, ensuring the infection never reaches land, even if it meant going down with the ship? The ocean has always represented freedom, adventure, and escape. But in this scenario, it becomes a cage, an unforgiving reminder that there is no true safety, not even in the most beautiful places on Earth. A paradise turned prison, a vacation turned into an apocalypse, and a ship turned into the birthplace of humanity's final chapter. In the end, the question is not whether you can survive. The question is whether anyone can. And if the outbreak starts in the middle of the ocean, perhaps the only answer is that the world never stood a chance.